Hey, Brittany.
Hi, Cassie.
Hey, Snarkers. Welcome back to the Snarking Lot. It's been a little bit. Brittany, what's going on today?
It's toasty outside. That's what's going on today.
It is very toasty. It's late August. Everyone's sweating.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we were sweating a little bit. Today we're sweating a lot of it.
Tomorrow, I think there's a heat advisory.
Oh, my app says, at least for here, excessive heat warning for tomorrow versus a heat advisory for today.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe a warning. It's tomorrow. It's a couple of the counties south of Milwaukee County. It's supposed to be heat index of 106. So,
Cool.
yay.
I informed my husband that finishing mowing the yard yesterday was the right call.
That is the good call because I'm like, I probably should have done it last week. Can I get away with it this week?
I would wait until at least Wednesday if going
Yeah,
to do it
maybe.
this
So
week.
maybe I will not be dumb and try to do it tomorrow or Tuesday.
Yeah,
I'll be like, well, it's
don't.
only like 15 minutes. It's fine. Shh. Just
Yeah, don't.
dead in the lawn.
Yeah, I mean, who cares?
True.
Nobody's gonna come give. No one's gonna even want to get out of their squad car to give you a citation on such a hot day.
No,
You know,
they don't
who's
do
gonna
that.
want to walk up to the door and like sweat to do that?
Right. And it's mostly the
Nobody.
back that the front looks okay. It's the back little backyard that's like, here, do you want a hay? Here you go.
Yeah, we have the heat weeds, like the things that look like cattails that pop up when it gets hot. That's what made it look bad. Like
Yeah.
little tufts of those. They
Yes.
had to go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm. Almost, it's late August, almost September. It's
That's
time to
right.
put up the pumpkin decor, really, when you think about it.
Have you treated yourself to a PSL?
I did. That was my first day off of work, and I decided that an iced pumpkin spice latte in the largest size possible was exactly how I was going to kick it off. You had one yet? You going to have one?
I used to have them. Feel like I can't. Well, maybe this with the cold ones. I can't really do them anymore. It just tastes synthetic. Or I start try to drink one and I'm like, or maybe I think I maybe would had one that might not have been made the best the last time. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh, this doesn't taste nice. Like stick to
yeah.
some other stuff. This is
This one was
unfortunate. 'Cause I do like pumpkin
was
stuff. I do
okay.
like pumpkin flavored stuff. Like I'm all about pumpkin bars, pumpkin bread, pumpkin
Mm-hmm.
pie. Like smell
Yeah,
of pumpkin doesn't bother me at all. So I was like, well, that's unfortunate.
it is unfortunate. This one was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. It was from Starbucks.
Yeah.
It was fine. But
Yeah.
I will tell you the Culvers, you know me, and the pumpkin spice shakes, from Culvers, those to me taste like you're drinking like pumpkin pie batter that's like
Actual
made with ice
pumpkin.
cream, and it's
Yes.
really good. I'm waiting for that.
There you go.
Excited about that. So,
It's
yeah,
probably coming. Like as soon as the first leaf falls somewhere, Culver's will be like, we got to bring them back.
I'm so excited. And then the sweet potato fries come at the same time, usually. Mmm,
Nope.
so good. You don't like sweet potato?
God, I can't stand sweet potato. Like I've tried. I don't
I
get
don't
it.
know.
You can
I
put
don't know
them
how to
over there
say
with
this
pickles,
nicely.
Brussels sprouts, and prime rib. I don't understand it. I've tried. I even tried. I've tried like with the various forms of it, fries, the actual just like
Okay.
cooked. I can't. That's weird. It
Really?
tastes weird. I'm like, what is this?
Really?
No.
It's so good.
No. Mm-mm.
I I don't know. I mean, and I say what I'm gonna say next very nicely and kindly to my best friend who is my co-host on this podcast. I don't know what is wrong with you. I don't know how you cannot like
Have good taste
sweet
in food
potatoes, pickles, and prime rib
and sauerkraut. Oh,
and sauerkraut all at the
gross.
same time.
It's like somebody took out white roadkill and was like, here, just don't get rid of the smell. Here, let's pickle what you pick out between your toes and ferment that shit and put it on a plate and call it German. No.
I
Mm-mm.
don't know what your problem is, really, honestly. I
Like,
determined there's really only one food I think that I really like don't want to eat, and it is cottage cheese.
see, that
Period.
doesn't bother me.
It's the texture.
Fair enough.
It's the chunkiness. I
It
just
is weird. It is weird.
don't like it.
Yeah.
Can't eat it. It's just that's just like I even just thinking about it like makes me want to vomit. So
It's
that's the
part of it's
only food.
runny and part of it's chunky. And it's like, what's going on there?
Yeah, that right there is exactly the problem. Like two textures running against each other in one container.
That's a lot of friction between the two textures.
A lot of friction. But if I mix cottage cheese with ricotta and parmesan for my lasagna,
Yes.
you know, insides, that's fine. But
That or I've done it with fruit before, and then it
hmm
goes off because again, you're focused on the fruit and you're like, okay,
yeah,
it's chunks and chunks.
you might be able to trick me with fruit, but I haven't ever
Yeah.
tried it because I'm just so skittish about the texture.
Straight cottage cheese is kind of difficult.
Well, here we are. This is episode 9 of the Snarking Lot, and we have decided that we have completed a short inaugural season of the pod, Brittany. How are you feeling? This is a recap episode.
Yeah, I think it's actually crazy when you said we done like we're done 9.
This is
This is number
9.
9.
Way back in April, we were baby podcasters, and now we're still baby podcasters, but we know a little bit more about what we're doing.
Yeah, with some more wrinkles and gray hair. Sure. Hmm.
Thanks for really making sure we hammer in that elder millennial part,
Hey,
you know?
9 more episodes and the podcast is leaving the house.
Adulting.
Uh-huh.
Adulting so hard. Adulting so hard. Should we do a quick recap episode mental health check? How's it going?
It's okay. We're
Yeah.
and we're existing in a time-space continuum.
That's one of my favorite quotes from the pod. We're existing in a time-space continuum.
Yeah, I'm like the doctor in Doctor Who. The TARDIS is life. Sure. Just existing. Time and relative dimension and space. How about you? How's your mental health?
I feel like this, like if I go back and listen to every episode, I answer all of your questions with exactly that same tone.
Yeah, it's
It's okay.
there.
Lots going on.
Yeah.
Also existing probably in a time-space continuum of survival.
Mm-hmm.
Hanging in, doing all the things. Being an older millennial, working, hanging in there, being super boring. Just lots of stuff going on, working through, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Fall is my favorite time of year, so I'm looking forward to fall, but fall is also a reminder that a whole extra year has almost gone by, which is kind of like a mind-blowing, you know, part of it.
Yeah, a whole extra year of your birth from your birth has gone by because someone has a birthday in a few days.
That's right, I do. Oh man, getting old. It's an age that shall remain unnamed, but I am turning another year older. Another trip around the world has taken the world by storm next week.
Like the
Never
Tas
thought. What?
like the Tasmanian devil, like just a tornado coming through.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Category
Very
5 Cassie on the way.
category 5 Cassie. I love how you just called me a tornado and then you referenced me as a hurricane.
Right.
I don't know which one's worse. So,
I
you
could have
know,
called you like an F2, but I was like, no, we gotta go with the
I'm
alliteration.
gonna go. Yeah, because alliteration is one of my favorite things
Yeah.
in the
Hmm.
world.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Shout out to my work colleagues for having to hear that like every other day. What if we used alliteration?
Easy to remember, easier for branding.
It is. Just rolls right off the tongue, you
Hmm.
know? Speaking of tornadoes though, I want to see the new Twisters really badly. because the 90s, was it in the 90s? Late 90s? The Twister movie with Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. You seen that movie?
Not all the way through, no.
Not all the way through. Okay. Well,
I've seen a couple bits of it when it's been on TV, but no, that's one I need to probably watch all the way through.
I think you need to watch it all the way through. I think it's a classic, and then you should go watch the new Twisters as well. So,
I've watched other store movies in recent years, and I'm like, ugh.
yeah,
But I have a feeling
yeah,
this, like Twister, would probably actually be
yeah,
better.
yeah, yeah. It was a good movie. I mean, for its time,
Right,
like late
right.
90s, early 2000s, whenever it was. I mean, it was a solid movie. So, yeah, like Helen Hunt, right? Yeah, come
Sure.
on. So, all right, Brittany. Well, again, here we are. We've made it.
Have we?
8 episodes. We're on our ninth. We had 2 guests during our
Mhm.
first season. We started off by telling everyone who we are, what we're about, how we became friends, went on a journey. Do you have any favorite eppies, as we say?
I like parts of a lot of them. Like I don't have maybe a
Yeah.
favorite overall. I do like
Okay.
having guests. It breaks it up a bit
Yeah.
every few episodes. So I will say probably the ones with the guests I liked. So I had to do less talking.
Spoken like a good,
Like
true
a good,
podcast host. Didn't
yeah,
want to
like a
talk.
good introvert. Less that I got to share about myself.
Like a good introvert.
Dil-
The
Dilute the
less
waters.
icebreakery this is, the
Yeah.
better.
No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. It's the
Love
only
it.
good about things warming up. I wish all the icebreakers would melt.
I will say, according to data, our first episode with a guest was our most listened to episode. Shout out to Amanda.
Fair
Woo-hoo.
enough.
Yeah, that was a really good one. Great reception.
Yeah.
Great insights, though. I think that was probably like if I had to pick one singularly, I would say the Amanda episode followed ever so closely. Shout out to Nick. Followed ever so closely by Nick. Yeah, the two with guests.
Yeah.
But Amanda and her insights on observing children as an educator. I just thought that was it was just a cool conversation. I think we were even surprised by some of the stuff that we learned in that episode. You
Hmm.
know, I like that one. It's fun.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear it from the other side, the other perspective. Having gone through to students and neither one of us being educators of that kind of sort.
But educators of other kinds of sorts is what you're
Sure.
implying.
Yeah, well,
I
you
like
still
that.
teach people in your job, but in a different way.
Yeah, really, when you think about it, we're philosophers.
Absolutely. I would like
Like,
to say that every health course student I've helped mentor has a job, so I didn't completely throw them off the path. So
yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
thanks.
Mm.
Thanks. You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome, society.
She's doing a little flex to the world
Right.
right now.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. Yes, my engagement was good. Yes,
Oh,
my
she did it.
interpersonal communication skills were top notch.
Oh, she's throwing down and you don't even know it. People in the Snarkiverse.
Hmm.
She's throwing out some zingers and you don't even know it. You got to know her as well as I do to know that she's sassing right now.
Hey, shout out to former employer
Love
definitions of
that.
how to evaluate your employees.
Hey,
Hey,
hey.
sorry, bullshit ways to evaluate your employees. Subjective, we'll call it. There we are.
It's so weird that you
Oops.
can be so introverted and not a
Still
great
have
team
thoughts?
player and
Weird, I
still have
know.
thoughts.
Like, weird.
That's cool.
I know. It's almost like people are diverse in many ways.
It's almost like diversity has a lot of different definitions,
Hmm.
right? And
But
not
yet,
just buckets we put people into.
right. And the people who are the loudest about it are the ones who also cannot handle said differences in people. Oops.
The opposite of differences, look at my segueing skills. The opposite of differences is similarities. And
Hey, look at that. The educators that
ah,
look at the educators that got you there. Good, very
you see
good.
me just like sliding right in, just like me just like sliding into the
Yeah.
snarking lot, like on a icy
Smooth.
day.
That was smooth. It was there were some newly sharpened hockey skates. You
Yeah.
just put that on.
I like
Mm.
how our, speaking of similarities, I like how our period stories were
Synced up.
similar. Like it was like same age, like even though we weren't in the same class, like same age, like late bloomers as we called, like late blooming onions, the episode, like
Not done in a way where like you were rushed getting to something, not done. Like, why couldn't it be done when you're like, I'm just, gotta get up from watching my show or reading or doing
yeah,
homework or
I'm at
something and
home eating supper and I get my period. It
casually
has to be
just,
like in the middle of,
yep,
something important
yep, or right
in the
before you
public.
gotta get somewhere. And you're like, well, that's a
No.
thing.
I like how we were both like hurrying to like deal with it in like one way or another as
Some better than
14-year-olds,
others. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know? Dear
Mm-hmm.
God.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pen 15, right? Like the
Yes.
true like coming of age show for any good elder millennial is the Pen 15 show. And like so spot on. Like,
Speaking of that, I just saw somebody sent me a thing where it's like kids of the 90s and it's like if you did that, it's one of those like it's a video thing because it was showing the different pictures of stuff. And
yeah,
so one was the Space Maker pencil boxes. You probably had one of these. The different colored stars that you looked forward to as a kid get and put on your like homework because that meant you
yes,
were like doing okay. The everybody apparently had the same school lunch menu printed
yeah,
out on a sheet of paper and like had a
nice.
favorite day, like you knew the day that typically had like I don't whatever it was, the food that you liked. The scooters in gym class that you like rolled around on the floor and then jam fingers to the thing and when it was measuring how far you could reach, it's that you put your foot on that box and then you had to reach forward, do
Yeah,
that. It's like a person's like,
yeah,
and now my back hurts just looking at that. All these things, and I mean, it's a little bit probably it's too young for the Pen 15 show. I don't think it's ever had any of that
yeah,
stuff because this is more when kids are middle and high school, and this would be stuff that was like more elementary school.
yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, there it is, there it is.
I was thinking about like I don't know how much I can't remember how much we talked about this. Maybe we didn't, but I was thinking about for sure in reflection about that late blooming onions episode and thinking about like just younger years in elementary school and stuff, and you're bringing up like elementary school lunch menus and everything. Like walking into an elementary school, the smell of an elementary school is still so distinct. Like when I was a reporter, like walking in to school for like doing a story or taking photos or whatever, there's such a distinct smell.
Yes,
And that's one thing that can bring me back is like whatever
yes.
it's wood bleacher plus sweat plus I don't know what, but it all mixes together and it's elementary school,
Yeah.
you
Mm.
know?
Still is from the ones
And
I had to
yeah,
collect as an
has never
adult
changed,
for stuff. Like, still is,
right?
still is. No matter the district, no matter the
Very
size,
much so.
you're just
I
like,
remember the smell like at our elementary school. If you had leftover milk, you would pour it into those big like soup cans that were on the heating radiator. So the smell of heating chocolate and white milk mixing together, like in an old big tomato soup can, probably,
the color of it and the smell.
right? That's another image of childhood that just like never leaves me.
Yep, yep. Mhm.
Baking both from the radiator heat and the hot sun because it was by the
Yeah,
window.
because it was by the window. Yep, because we thought that was where it should go.
Uh-huh. We thought that was the
Mm-hmm.
best spot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Not where you returned your tray. No, over by the
Right. Not where you
trash and
returned your
radiators.
tray. By trash, which is by the radiator, and this is on top
Yeah,
of
you
the
had the
radiator.
trash, the radiator heating the milk. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also love how we have both had an affinity for French horn that we uncovered, like that we both like wanted to probably be French hornists
Mhm.
instead of the instruments we ended up playing.
Yep.
And the beauty of music bringing people together, the beauty of music creating a lifelong friendship, really, when you think about it.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe it's good I didn't play French horn then.
I know how things could have been so different.
Well, if you would have too, then we've both been in the same section. So
I know.
I don't know. It was
Then we would
weird.
have like competed. You know what I mean? Then I think we would have had a more competitive spirit against each
There'd be no
other.
trio. You can't have a trio if two people are playing the same
Right. Right.
same
You'd
instrument.
have a duet with two French horns.
Right. I don't know how many of those were ever at solo ensembles, but
Yeah. I don't think that's like
no.
compelling music, you know?
Right. You don't see too many of those. It's usually two different instruments.
And how isn't it weird how the world works? Like when we were recording that episode, it was right around the time that Pierre had passed away. So we got to talk about our elementary school music teacher, Pierre,
Yeah.
great composer. Isn't that weird?
Yes. Unplanned. The timing of that was unplanned as far, obviously unplanned for going, but
It
unplanned
was.
as far as like the scheduling of the order of the
It was.
music episode being then.
It would seem like we did it on purpose, but we did not.
Not.
We did not. It's just we're because our aura is so powerful into the universe that it just,
Yeah,
everything
if
just came together.
there's one thing my aura has the pulse on, the finger on the pulse of, it's the universe.
Yeah, me too.
Snarking Lot, finger right on the carotid of the universe.
Right on the carotid of the universe. Look at you and your analogies.
Sure.
Spot on.
Be a little creepy if I said the femoral artery.
Would be a little creepy.
Just grasping the
Speaking of
leg,
that,
just grasping the thigh of the universe.
speaking of that, what was I doing today? Squirrel alert. I was watching Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix in very elder millennial fashion.
I did not know that was where you're going to go when I was talking about fondling the
Well,
thigh of
when
the
you were talking
universe.
about ephemeral artery, then
I
I thought
guess I could
about
see that.
bleeding.
It's a nice segue to crime. Very good. Okay.
Yeah, and then I thought crime, and then I thought murder, and then I thought about the episode I just watched, which was pretty gory,
Sure.
and then it had to come out of my mouth.
There you go. There you go.
Very eclectic taste on Netflix. We go from Unsolved Mysteries to Resident Alien.
Just a nice buffet. Just a nice buffet of things.
It's a little buffet.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of random assortment of things,
Potpourri alert.
yeah. So you like to find out who people in a group, whether I call it friend group A or friend group B, where their
Hmm.
humor lies, where you can classify them. Speaking of putting people in buckets, and sometimes you just gotta like hold back on throwing out the bomb because you're like, you know what would really help scatter people where they're gonna go real quick is just a simple thing out, which one of my coworkers did recently, and I was like, yes, okay. But coworker recently had an in-law pass away, and so
Okay.
like, sorry, whatever. And it is weird because I don't know her that well and I don't know what to say. And so another coworker sent me a private message and she's like, I just feel so awkward in these things. Like I don't really know what to say because there's nothing you can say to make it
Yep.
better. I don't know her that well. And I'm like, I know, because I usually just resort to dark humor, but I feel like probably shouldn't do that yet. Don't know where it quite lies. And then I introduced her to the movie Death at a Funeral, which
Okay.
is on Netflix, or excuse me, it's on YouTube in its entirety. I think both versions are. She watched both in one night. She liked the British one better. And I
Because the
said,
British one
yeah.
is, excuse my language, fucking amazing.
I sent her the trailer and I was like, just watch this. She's like, oh, I am intrigued. She watches some British stuff. And so it's like, get ready. Yes, here we go. And so yeah, she watched that. She's like, that was so wow. But also the British one, like both were funny. But she's like, I like the British one a lot better. And
The
I'm like, what
British
kind of
one is
British
so
humor?
good.
It's the OG.
It's
Speaking
the
of
OG
everything
Death at a
and Alan
Funeral.
Tudyk, like it's the OG.
Is that how you say his name? Tudyk? Tudyk?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Why is everything so
he's
fucking green?
yeah, that's how we refer to him as the everything so fucking green guy. That is okay, so fun fact about Death at a Funeral. Uh way back, way back yonder when my husband and I worked together, but we were not yet together. I introduced him to the movie Death at a Funeral. We were exchanging DVDs because this was long enough ago that people were still just like watching things on DVD. It was
Yeah,
even
you'd
still like
swap
prior
them.
to
Yeah.
Redbox, you just swap
Hmm.
DVDs. So we were like doing some DVD swaps at work, and I'm like, you gotta watch this one. And it was Death at a Funeral. And this kind of introduced him to my some of my humor style. Um, you know, and it was great.
Just for
Also, it's your
context,
first,
oh, go
right?
ahead.
No,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say like, and and then later in life when you are a big Game of Thrones fan, you look back on Death at a Funeral and you're like, Peter
Mm-hmm.
Dinklage, you know? Anyway, go
Mm-hmm.
on.
Or
Sorry.
anything where you watch a bunch of British stuff and you're like, oh, that one and that one and that one and that one and that one. No, shit, they're all in the same shit together. Uh,
Exactly.
Uncle Elfie, also in Game of Thrones. Believe he was the ma one of the maesters, wasn't he?
That's right.
Yeah,
He
there's
was.
a ton of fucking British people everywhere and everything. 50 British actors. One
I
person I know has the
know.
theory 50 British actors. There's 50
Yeah.
core British actors, and they're the ones that you see in everything.
And Alan Tudyk though is
He's
American.
American. Yep. So that was why he plays that part. Because so anyone who hasn't seen the movie, he is the boyfriend. So the family is British. He is the
Yes.
boyfriend of someone in the family. They're all going to
Yes.
a funeral, which is,
Yes.
there it's held at the home. The whole entire thing is held at the home, a gathering. And so, yes, one of the ways he is like seen as kind of off from the rest of the family is because he is American. She's bringing an American to a British thing. The
Yep.
American version, it's like Martin Lawrence and all of them. So very, I think it's Tyler Perry in it. It's a bunch of like
Yeah.
African
Yeah.
American actors. And
It's a
so
bunch of black actors. Yep.
yes. And James Marsden is Alan Tudyk's character in the American one, obviously being somebody who's like white and being brought to it. And they, without going, they end up tripping balls. Their character ends up tripping balls unintentionally. So add to that that they're at a function where they're supposed to be trying to be very demure, very,
Very
very,
cutesy, very mindful,
yeah,
very
yeah,
demure.
and
Yeah.
like not draw attention to themselves and kind of get in with the family and be okay. And they are tripping so hard they're unable to control it. Also, the very first scene, which is in the trailer, I think it's the first scene in the trailer too, the opening scene of the movie, which I always tell people too if I tell them to watch. I was like, just to give you an idea, the opening scene is them wheeling a casket in, and they open it up, and it's somebody. It's not the father of the main
It's
character,
not the right person.
not the right person. So he lets them know, and they say something to the effect of, "Oh shit, we grabbed the wrong one," and close it down, roll it back out. Like that is not demure, not cutesy.
Not cutesy at all.
No, like
My
that's what it
favorite
is.
scene in the whole movie is like the opposite of cutesy. Like, I'm not going to give it away because it's like you have to just know, you just have to, you can't, it can't be given away. But I bet you know, Brittany, what I'm talking about.
Is it
Like, if,
the abrupt yell? The oh, is it that one?
no,
No.
no. What, like, just do not give it away. What would be like so opposite of cutesy?
Well, the whole movie.
Well, okay, but other than the whole movie.
How many characters are in the main kind of?
I like three are involved in this epic scene.
Okay, okay, maybe their
It
bathroom
has to
involved.
do with the yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah. All right. Yes. Yep.
yeah, no, like that just
Mm-hmm.
hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take anything away from this recap episode, which is basically just Potpourri Squirrel, I think I'm gonna name this episode Potpourri Squirrel.
It's fine. It's fine.
Watch Death at a Funeral.
It's on YouTube. You can just literally type in "Death at a Funeral." 2007, I think, is the one you want, and I think that's or it'll be clear.
It'll be
Yeah,
clear.
for people, okay, for millennials, for people our age, people who are heathens and don't like the older Pride and Prejudice, the newer one, circa I think it's 2005.
Yes,
Uh, Darcy is the lead character, Matthew McFadden, or
yes,
a
and he
Succession.
because Succession is another amazing show, and he is amazing in it. And
Yeah,
yes,
you'll
yes, there's a
recognize
lot of
probably a lot.
crossover.
There's
Yeah, there's a
people
lot
from
of
Sherlock
crossover
in
to
it.
things that are
There's
very popular.
Peter
Yeah,
Dink. Yes, Peter Dinklage is in it.
Peter Dinklage.
Tyrion Lannister is in it,
Yeah, yeah,
but is a very
Tyrion.
un-Tyrion character.
Very un-Tyrion.
Uh-huh.
Potpourri Squirrel.
Just, you know what though? Tea can do a lot of things, but it can't bring back the dead.
That is so true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so squirrel alert. I just did like 6 degrees of separation to what I'm going to talk about next based on like where you just went, so bear with me. Um, I watch I somehow have come across Jeff Arcuri's comedy on Instagram. I don't know if you're familiar with him,
A little
but he's
bit.
kind of famous for his crowd work. Like he's a comedian that's pretty famous for just like posting clips of his crowd work constantly, and he's hilarious. And um this goes to one of our episodes. Watch the 6 degrees of separation of my brain synapses
Watching,
firing.
counting.
watching watching so he was doing some crowd work and he was talking to a guy and he's like, what did you get your degree in? And the guy's Australian and he goes, the arts. So then he's making fun of him for saying like, arts like arts because he's Australian. And then he's like, what do you do now? And the guy's like, work in local government. And he's like, oh, so some would say the opposite of the arts, which leads me to our civic Call of Duty episode that we had Nick on for.
Very good. Very
Thank you.
good.
You see how
I
that
like
map
like that. I like
point
that.
A to point X.
It was good. It was good.
Okay, so here's the serious topic now. Civic Call to Duty, reflecting on that episode. Brittany, what are your thoughts? Do you think you'd ever get into running for an elected position? We've talked about this before.
Maybe. Maybe at a local level.
Local level. Okay.
I don't
Does
really get
anything
tolerate.
that Nick said really resonate with you?
Well, I think kind of just the gist of, paying attention, get like finding out what is actually going on at those meeting places where you have an opportunity to learn what's going on, whether they be the meetings or again, if you're likely in a community where you are near the person, being able to have access to them to talk to them about stuff, and understand how those decisions are going to affect your everyday
Yeah.
life, how the decisions on things like the budget or what the plans are for stuff is going to, what
Yeah,
it's going to look like for you, what it's going to mean for you.
I agree.
I think a lot of people, not that, everyone, people think of politics or elections or whatever, I think everybody just kind of assumes, federal, maybe some state. I think the local level is often left out of a lot of that, or
I
just kind of
agree.
glossed over.
I agree. Yeah, I thought his point about that was great. Um, I thought an interesting point because I kind of asked the question about, do you think that like the local level is less political, like less partisan or political than other levels? And his argument was yes. Now I talked to someone, um, like a friend after the episode who worked as a county government, like employee at a Wisconsin county. And this person thought that that comment was interesting, didn't really analyze whether or not they agreed or disagreed with it at the time, but just thought like they kind of wanted to talk about it more with me at some point to kind of unpack it because they just thought that was an interesting argument because it kind of implied that maybe they saw some things differently than that, like in local government. And I think I agree with that to some degree, like covering local government of various levels and journalism. I think you can see people's kind of political leanings come out, but it isn't like I run as a certain party or another party, but in frames of thinking, right? Like fiscal conservatism or, just whatever, you
Yeah,
can kind of see some leanings come out. But I do agree with Nick that I think it is significantly less political at bare minimum than other.
I think it depends on the place or the topic.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Start to see stuff when they've had meetings on what, things throughout the state, or I've read local stuff from various boards around the state,
Hmm.
happenings, county,
Yeah.
those levels, and I'm like, so yes, I think it is very dependent on
Yeah.
that or the topic. So like I could see it both ways. Like just generally, if you're running like just a meeting and nothing really gets spicy, probably less. Just like, all right, yep,
Right.
this, that, whatever, straightforward.
Right.
I could see where there could be some of that would come out.
Yeah, and I agree with you about the thing that really resonated with me was like just get involved. And I don't think I said this during the episode, but So I was in journalism for a while and then, worked like at a different job in one of the communities that I covered, like in a different role after that. And one day was meeting with one of my coworkers, and a school board had made a decision to go to referendum, right? And you know, lots of dialogue in the lead up to that. If you went to any school board meetings, you knew exactly what they were doing. They posted everything properly, like all the things, right? But this person made the argument that like that particular school district was they did everything kind of under the table. And I remember distinctly saying, nicely, of course, because I was at work, but they did everything properly. I was there. I know these people. They're not nefarious, school officials, right? And the school board is very ethical and like all of that. But the argument that I didn't go so far as to say in that moment was if you had gone to any meetings, you would know exactly what's going on. But it's
Read the
that
minutes, read the stuff that's
disconnect.
posted, like
Yeah, go or read the minutes if you can't
something,
go.
something, you know.
You can't just claim that people are doing things under the table if you choose to keep yourself in the dark. That just is not, and I think that's the thing. Like, even if you're not going to take a stance or get involved, just even go watch a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Going to one is better than going to none.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just
So,
listen, which and I'll take a pot shot at former employers. Listening, I know, doesn't always get counted as for credit, but listening is important.
listening is important.
Underrated. An underrated skill.
Underrated. Listening to understand rather than to respond, I think, is one of my favorite quotes.
That too. Mm-hmm.
I am guilty of sometimes just waiting to respond. Depending on my mood, I'm holding my hand up and raising my hand, that I fall victim to that. But I appreciate the sentiment of like, you
Mm-hmm.
actually got to have your ear holes open
Right. Yes.
to participate meaningfully.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Agreed.
Okay, Brittany, the last two epis of our season were about cool places to do and places to eat in Wisconsin. What were your thoughts there? I feel like the Snarkiverse learned some about your taste and the food one in particular, speaking of not liking prime rib.
One that I'm a poor Wisconsinite, like my favorite places, but not
Yeah.
a lot of my favorite places for things are not actually in Wisconsin.
Yeah, you kind of like revealed yourself real hard on that
I
one.
mean, for both of them, I'll just say it. I like mountains, kind of hard. We don't have a Mount Wisconsin, so all right off the bat,
I like mountains.
I like mountains. So everything is second tier for me when I'm listing stuff in Wisconsin. Not that there aren't great things and some hidden gems, but also, yeah, for food, I'm just not naturally,
Yeah.
despite being part Swiss and German and Irish, I
Yeah.
cannot lean heavily into those. They have some abhorrent cuisines. I'm just spices. That's all I'm gonna say. Flavor your food.
Flavor your food.
I like to feel something, at least once in a while in
That
life.
was one of my favorite quotes. I like to feel something.
I mean, I eat garlic straight, so I just boiled
That's
cabbage.
crazy, actually.
Boiled cabbage doesn't do it for me.
Every time I throw a bunch of garlic in a pan when I'm making something, I think of you, and that is not an exaggeration.
Good. I can eat a clove straight. Like it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I like, you crush it, you put it through the crusher thing, and then of course there's like
Yeah,
stuff. I'm like, oh, good.
right.
Yay. Clean it out. Might as well not waste not.
Well, at least we know you aren't going to fall victim to a vampire anytime soon. That's
No,
all I can feel confident about,
I'm a
you
werewolf.
know?
Come on, you'll know that.
Yeah. I'm an emotional werewolf.
Emotional werewolf. It hides.
How?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We've
Yeah.
done so many fun things together, Brittany, but then I'm thinking like we have to get back together to do more because it's quite literally been almost 5 whole years since we've seen each other in person, correct?
I think so.
Was it 2019
I think it was.
when the infamous garlic bread incident happened?
Yep. Mm-hmm. It would be October of or late September
2019.
2019.
That's right. That's right.
Speaking of garlic, I mean, yeah, no garlic butter bread for you.
You need to wring that shit out. You can just wring the butter out of that. I mean,
It is
That
alarming.
is, it is alarming how buttery it is. Like it's
It's alarming.
delicious, but
A little goes a long way.
the last time I saw you, my intestines were like having a fit. So
You know, Bastille days, it's like your intestines were like all French Revolution on you, and we're like, no, no.
yeah,
Like,
the
I felt
complete
like if
mutiny.
your
The
bathroom
complete
soundtrack was Les
mutiny.
Mis, it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Hmm. Hmm. It happens. Sometimes food affects us.
It took me years to admit to my husband what happened in your apartment that evening
Why? It's a perfectly fine bodily function.
because I was ashamed of what
Happens to
happened.
me, and I have my gallbladder. Like sometimes things just apparently do not go correctly. Happens to everybody, I would presume.
Oh, that's another thing. Speaking of gallbladder, like my favorite thing about being an elder millennial, bringing things full circle, is that like Facebook memories, and we've been on Facebook long enough where it can be like 15 years ago this happened, you know?
No.
So like 15 years ago, like was when I started to clearly have gallbladder attacks that I didn't know were gallbladder attacks, and then it was like 14. It was just like just recently. It was like 14 years ago on this day. Like it's like, and then I was talking about having gallbladder surgery and recovering from gallbladder surgery. So, you know,
R.I.P. gallbladder.
RIP gallbladder. It was so inflamed. It was so gross.
When was the point where you knew you had to, it was going to have to come out? Like, what
Well,
did you feel like you were having appendicitis, but everywhere? What was going on?
I was so I went down to my parents that
Mm-hmm.
weekend, and we had, as I mentioned in the podcast, we had Friday night fish fry from Partridge Hall. So I ate the fish fry, and
Oh
then a
God.
couple hours later,
Not even,
right? I said
not even a
this.
nice calm thing. Like, oh no, you,
No, no.
oh,
We went full Partridge Hall din din that night. And then a couple hours, I like writhed in pain all night. And then that morning, my mom and I had planned to go get me a new cell phone at the supermarket that had the US Cellular counter where, the supermarket where she worked that had the US Cellular counter. So I'm like doubled over in pain, but I need a new cell phone because mine is broken. And so I'm like, okay, I'm like standing at the counter, like when they're not waiting on me, like doubled over. And she's like, are you
oh,
okay? I'm like, clearly I'm not. So we go home. Yeah,
oh,
so we take the 25-minute drive home. And then I'm like curled up on my parents' living room floor. Just picture it, because you know what it's like. I'm just curled up on the pink carpet on my parents' living room, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong, but like something's like really, really freaking wrong. And so my dad's
yep,
like, get your ass up. We are going to the hospital. And so they like forced me to go to the emergency room, and then they did like an X-ray, which they didn't really they still didn't know what was going on. And they had to do an ultrasound, and then the ultrasound was like
yep.
the ultrasound, they're not supposed to tell you, like, they're not supposed to tell you what's going on. I'm like, I convinced the ultrasound tech to be like, okay, like, am I having my gallbladder taken out? She's like, it's your gallbladder. So yeah, that's the short version of the gallbladder story.
What a journey. What a time.
But the like prior to that, like I was at work. It was like my first job out of college, right? And so like I would drink sodas, I would drink carbonated beverages, and then I would start to get like this pain in the middle of my chest. And one time it got bad enough that I went to urgent care in the town where I worked, and they're just like, you're fine. You just got indigestion. $800 to tell me I had indigestion. Don't get me started on the healthcare system, Brittany.
Hmm.
You know?
Or do I?
So,
Or do
or
I?
do I?
Or do I get you started? Or is it just indigestion?
Upset
Because
stomach,
probably not.
diarrhea.
Like that was probably the start of it back then. They just
It
didn't,
was. They
they just
told me
didn't,
like those were probably attacks that I just didn't know
yeah,
were
they
attacks.
just didn't bother
Yeah.
addressing it because why would
It
we?
was so inflamed. They showed me pictures because they did, laparoscopic pictures or whatever. It was so inflamed. And they're like, yeah, if you didn't get this taken out, you probably would have gotten septic. I'm like,
Yep,
cool.
yep. That would have been a
That's
problem.
cool.
That would
That
have
would
been a
have been a
hospital stay.
problem. That
That
would
would
have
have
been a
been
problem.
some good old drugs and some
Mhm.
hospital stay and
I dreamt up an award-winning column while on Vicodin. So there was
Why
also
is that
that.
not the lead on your Instagram? And
Should be,
just
shouldn't it?
every bio, everything ever when you get in. Why the hell isn't that your bio on this fucking podcast?
because it
Well,
wasn't the column.
well,
Like you,
shit, if we put you on meth, you'd be a Nobel Peace Prize winner. My God. Fucking hell. I'll give you some coke. I want to see what you can do. You're in a goddamn Hollywood, like fucking award-winning movie,
I
documentary.
want I want to qualify that Vicodin actually did not make me feel good. Like I did not desire to stay on
Vicodin made
Vicodin.
me nauseous. I had it after
Yeah,
my
maybe
knee
nauseous too.
thing, and I threw up once, and there were just other times I was like, I gotta wean.
Yeah,
I know it's pain things, but I gotta wean
yeah.
myself off. But I was also like, no fucking wonder Favre got addicted to these. It is goddamn medical moonshine. It's like horse
Well,
piss.
yeah. And that's why, like, I've honestly said to people like you, and I know we've mentioned this to you, like, under any circumstances, if I ever get in some sort of accident or something where I get severely injured and I'm like, I have pain that I'm trying to recover from, like, I don't think they do it as much anymore. But, like, if they're like, hey, we're going to give you some oxycodone, I'm going to be like, fuck you. I
Yeah,
don't want it.
yeah,
Like, because I'm so scared after reading all of my favorite books that you know about, Brittany. Um,
yeah.
I
As you
just
should be.
refuse, you know,
There's
it's very
now
scary.
something out there stronger than fentanyl, like stronger than oxy. They've just made.
Mhm.
It's fucking terrifying.
That's great. And by great, I mean that's absolutely terrible
Yeah,
and I'm
no,
scared.
it's totally fine. Nothing would ever go wrong.
It's totally fine. We don't live in a for-profit like environment or society.
That feeds off people living in chronic pain. It's fine. It's
You know what
totally
you know what
fine.
I told my husband when I told him? And I don't think he believes me. The pain charts in the doctor's offices where you like rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10,
Don't get me
that was
started on
that
those.
was just created by the Sacklers, really. Like it was just created by pharmaceutical companies to to pump all their drugs.
Well, and you want to know that also, like, so it comes up a lot in pediatric research, emergency medicine research, because
Please don't
so,
even use the word pediatric in this
well, no,
context.
but like, it's such a, so, I mean, they always underdiagnose and undertreat pain
Yes.
all the time in adults, and it's even more so in kids for a number of reasons. They've done studies and stuff. There was like one going on when I was there. Like, why? Like, is it just length of time? Are you scared to give kids things? Is it the pressure of
Mm-hmm.
the parent there? Do you want to just be like, oh, get them to the ED, it's their problem then? Like,
Right.
it's harder to administer it. Like, it's harder to get them to take something, or if you got to give them a shot, it's hard, like a whole host of things. But they still, a lot of places, and they're still in like pediatric areas, like they will hold up the face chart, like the pain chart to kids. And of course, kids don't know what the fuck is going on. And like often will just point to things, and then it's
How are you
also,
supposed to rate it? Adults, we look
it's
at it and
not
go, I don't
good.
know how to answer that.
No, well, and that's part of the thing too, is like that's why, like when pain is the chief complaint, and there have been study after study after study, article after, you just Google chief complaint pain, or like why is pain not addressed in adults? Just like look it up online, and there are article after article after article. I don't think the doctor's probably still doing it at Lauren Brown at MCW at Children's, of like why is it under, if somebody comes in with a seizure, they're addressing stuff for seizure. Why is it when the chief complaint is pain, whether it's I broke my arm or
Right.
something, why is that not addressed right away?
Right.
Maybe there is something to do with like, well, they'll get down the road, they'll just give them higher pain meds. But
Hmm.
yeah, like they've shown that using that face thing, like using the pain scale, is not correct. It's not accurate for adults. It's not accurate for children. Like
No.
it just doesn't work. It's not medically sound. It's all subjective.
Yeah.
Especially again, of course, if you go to a kid who's, like maybe an older kid can use it, like again, still subjective, but like you're gonna hold it up to a 3-year-old. What's your pain scale? Point to it. Like they're gonna just look at whatever the color looks cool, or
Yeah.
there's like the faces
Yeah.
one where it's got the different faces around the colors. Like you really think
Yeah,
they're
I
gonna
know.
like pointing to something they like? They don't.
I always ask, like, how am I supposed to answer that? What does one mean? What does 10
Well,
mean?
and just even
And
with
then
people,
like,
the subjective, like just the pain tolerance, people's pain tolerance difference, differs.
totally.
Not that we can't address pain in everybody, but like what someone considers a 3, someone else could consider an 8, and not because they're a wimp, just different, or depending on what it is. If you have existing pain that you're like used to, and your body's kind of dulled to it, like it. I remember for my knee, like they would ask stuff, and I'd be like, "Well, I mean, it's not the worst." And I go now, I'm like, I mean, they knew better than probably ask somebody, like people, like if you ask athletes, especially, or anything, like that's just like, again, speaking of a whole group of people who are just like totally warped in anything as far as like compared to
Yeah, it's
like
not going to be
off the
accurate.
street. But like, yeah, it's just totally, it's all subjective. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
how are we using that to determine it? Yeah, there's so much research things going on. And they're like, yeah, why aren't they? Or, why is nobody doing that? But then, yeah, magically, it's like, oh, well, then it gets to be so bad. Well, we got to give you the higher dose things then.
Yep.
Here's the magic pill. Arthur Purdue and
Read,
his team did. Hey.
read, read Dreamland and watch Dopesick on Hulu,
Well,
which is the fictionalized representation of the truth.
yeah, like just and why is the spike? Why did the opioid epidemic? Why did the spike suddenly happen? Weird
The
that the
Sackler family.
weird that the timing coincides with stronger painkillers, and then when they run out, people
It's totally
are
100%
addicted.
proven.
So weird. So strange. So strange it was also not a problem until it spread out from the inner city, quote unquote.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of proven correlation there.
Oh, so I'm
Yeah, when it started to affect rich suburbs, rich
yep,
families who live in the suburbs, then that's
yep.
when it became like, oh, we have like an opioid
We
crisis.
have an epidemic. We have a crisis on our hands now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Brittany, we could do a whole episode on this.
my PI at MCW did it because they had a Milwaukee opioid thing, and it was like I used to watch it. I wasn't the coordinator on the project, but I used to watch some of the stuff or kind of have to help check stuff and just all the analyses and just watching the dots spread out and like
Yeah.
dates of stuff and when it became a problem and watching it go through. I technically live in a suburb. I'm literally 2 blocks from from Milwaukee, so whatever. It all kind of looks the same, but there's another specific part of my community, my suburb,
Mm-hmm.
which also is so funny because again, it's got some wealth, and apparently I've talked to people who grew up here, and it's a high school. It's a I think it's a Catholic high school. It's a Catholic school, but apparently that is the place everyone knows. If you want the good stuff, that's the place to go.
There you
And has
go.
been for decades. And why? Because people have money. And I'm like, oh. And then yes, once the opioid epidemic hit there, then it became an issue I started waking up to. And I'm like, ah, well, yeah, once it moves zip codes
Course.
or into the rural area, like whatever,
Course.
we could just dismiss it in rural areas for a while. Well, it's fine.
For a while.
It's fine.
But we digress.
Pain scale, faces scale, very, very bad. There is actually
Very bad. Equals very bad.
very bad, just very scientifically inaccurate and terrible. I cringe when I see it in a room. If I'm in a room, I want to just throw it. I just want to grab it and throw it away.
Very not cutesy.
I wonder if they'd notice if I just like took it out of the laminated thing and was like, here, I did it for you. Hi, hello, hi. A couple of the people who publish papers. Hello,
Eh.
hi. This isn't good. You're ruining everything. Um, Speaking of, oh God, there's a scene from. It came out while he was doing that work because my PI went took her kids to a movie. Is it the big whatever? It's like it was like the big white like robot guy that looked like the Michelin Man almost. I don't know the movie
Yeah.
you're talking about, so
Yeah.
I gotta find and send you after the podcast. But there's a scene where he's basically like, show us on the scale, or he asks like, show us on the dollar, he asks, show us on the robot where it hurts. Or he basically does a pain scale to the little kid in the movie. And my PI was in there with her kids, like look at the movie and started like laughing hysterically in the theater at it, and like nobody else really did because it's just a very brief thing. It's not meant to
Well,
be
right. It's not
a
meant to be
thing.
funny,
And
but like,
she, of course, with her work, like overseeing the doctor that was digging into it, like lost it. Her kids were like, "Mom, what the? Shut up!"
oh,
And like nobody else. It's just a quick thing. And she's like, apparently was busting a gut laughing. And
that's so funny.
I'm like, oh, great, amazing,
Well,
yeah. He
we've
didn't
got some
did.
spice on this podcast. We call it the Snarking Lot for a reason. We've got a little spicy. Look at
Mhm.
where we just went right now.
Fuck the
Look at you.
Sacklers. Fuck Purdue Pharma. Oops.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of my life hot take spices, topics. So read Dreamland and watch Dopesick, everyone who is listening to this podcast.
Yes.
Please do. Okay, speaking of reading, what are you reading now? We haven't really talked in like weeks. It's been weird. What's going on with you? What are you reading?
So let's see. I'm pulling up Pulling up the one. I finished, it's a fictionalized account, but it's called Rednecks by Taylor Brown.
Okay.
Speaking of coal country, mountain country, it's about Blair Mountain and the stand at Blair Mountain. During so this is pre-opioid everything. This is in
Yeah.
the 20s and 30s, but working class stuff, kind of how the rednecks like that term came about.
Oh,
Um,
wow. I'm intrigued.
so basically groups of miners working, obviously very dangerous. This is in West Virginia in the mountains,
Yep.
Blair Mountain. Coal mining, very dangerous, very deadly,
Yep.
and workers wanted to unionize. And assisted by the government, that attempt, they tried to crush it. And so miners went on strikes, they blew up mines. And so there was basically a giant standoff. It is, I think, outside of the Civil War, it's one of the largest, it's got one of the highest death counts of like any battle post Civil War, like on American
Wow.
soil.
Okay, I want to read that.
Yeah, so it's like a fictionalized kind of thing because there are real people in it, but it's taking what really happened and probably drawing off of actual sources like different
Oh,
characters
sure.
following it throughout.
Yeah.
Um, because it's got Hatfield McCoy. Well, Hatfield's in it, like Hatfield and McCoy. So this is like that time period. Um, uh,
Nice.
that, yeah. And then the one I just finished today is called Death at SeaWorld. And so it's about orcas in captivity and the people who have died taking care of them and kind of the fight to
Wow.
because fuck SeaWorld. In terms of orcas, like that.
Have you
So
watched the Jaws movies?
yes, I
Okay.
have.
Great.
I have.
Just making sure. Like all of them,
I think so. Yeah, I
which
mean,
is
I don't
why
remember very little of it, but
bringing up
yes,
SeaWorld, you bring up SeaWorld, which is why I'm bringing up Jaws.
yes,
Um,
yes. But there's actually, I think it's still on Netflix. I have it on DVD, but it's a 2013 documentary called Blackfish. There's also another book called Beneath the Surface by John Hargrove, who's another trainer at SeaWorld. And so yeah, it talks about things that went on there, trainers who died, things that were covered up, comparisons to wild killer whales,
mm,
um, just the practices of when they were poached and acquired, how the trainer deaths and injuries were covered up. Like it's pretty
sure.
horrifying.
That
So
sounds terrible, but also
it
like
is.
something I want to
I've
read.
read I've reread John Hargrove's book twice. This is the one I checked out from the library and read. And then I watched Blackfish and I'm like, you know what? I want not my comfort thing, but I want something I've seen before, but just to still be interested in. I'll just, casually put on a documentary about
Yeah.
killer whales in captivity. It's fine.
Me and my comfort
Yeah,
unsolved mysteries
that too.
documentaries as well.
That too.
You know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That
Well,
podcast, everything.
your working class comment. This is not something I'm reading currently, but something I've read. A book called Rust, which is like a memoir by a woman who, was going to school for college for something and like had mental health challenges, figured out she like had bipolar disorder, and then like due to all the challenges she had going on, started working in a very working class job at a factory, and just like her experiences kind of between classes while navigating mental health challenges, like a phenomenal book. So I recommend that. That's a past one. And I'm still trying to read Fourth Wing just for some light diversion from the heavy shit that I normally read. So, you know, gotta get in there. Gotta get going on that.
Well, yeah, 'cause you got Iron Flame, and then the next one's coming out, I think,
I know.
later this year.
Gotta get ready. Gotta get ready. So, what are your goals? We talk a lot about like being mentally stable and drinking water when we talk about goals. That's been kind of a theme throughout our episodes.
Yeah,
What do we
yeah.
got going on for goals with you?
Short term, just kind of a busy week. It's gonna be toasty. I'm just
Yep.
literally making it through the week because my God, it's gonna be September.
I know. And when it starts
Mm.
September, then I'm that year older. You know, really,
Yeah.
you know, heading
Mhm.
into my next year of life strong. That's my goal. That's a generic statement.
Hey, not always easy to do though.
This is true. I need to hydrate better. I kind of regressed in my hydration.
Happens.
So I got to
Mhm.
get back on that. But especially now that it's going to be you know, sweat in all crevices land here
Mhm.
for the next few days. Really need to make sure the hydration's up to par.
Swamp ass is real.
All right, Brittany. I'm shit you've seen the news.
All of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a lot of things. Again, it's been a little bit since we recorded pod. It's been a lot going on. We haven't been recounting things in real time, so we got to keep it Cliff's Notes because otherwise we'll be on here for like 6 hours, you know?
Ooh. Um,
Nobody wants a 6 hour pod.
no. This isn't, then it turns into an audiobook, except there's no text.
A Snarking Lot audiobook. That's a
Oh
great
my
idea,
God.
actually. Mark it down. Mark it down.
Um, it's just, let's call them recycled talking points and arguments and justifications.
Okay.
Election cycle for election cycle. And I'll say it because I said it in prep. And I don't care.
Preppy.
If you want some spice? Here's some cumin powder for your fucking bland ass potatoes.
Uh-oh. Everybody strap in, hold on tight now.
You have to vote this way because don't worry, once they get into office, so and so, you can probably push so and so left.
Okay.
And I'm picking on one thing I've heard. There are many across everything, because let's face it, either team, no one's coming to save you, but either big
Of
team.
course. Of course.
But to that, I've had to really hold off on asking, how did that go the last not even 4 years? Because we did the bait and switcheroo here in the last couple months. Because the only times
Spice alert.
the only times the president went left is when he wandered that way or fell down that way.
Brittany, my
So
dear co-host friend. You,
introverts can have thoughts too. It doesn't mean we're not thinking things. That's
that is
also
true.
that's just wanna, I need that on a business card to send to someone on my
Yeah,
phone.
we need like a little qualifying, like flashing statement,
Yeah.
like under, like on the screen now that's just like introverts can have thoughts. Brittany just
Yeah,
had lots of
yeah.
thoughts come out of her mouth.
Don't mistake me being quiet for just
Yeah.
bzzz. How about
So
you,
I'm not
Cassie?
gonna,
What dumb things have you seen in the news?
I mean, everything, like you
Oh
said,
yeah.
so just like a lot. I like your term bait and switch. We won't, I'm not gonna go too
Hashtag
political.
democracy. Hashtag democracy.
Yeah, there's
Hashtag people's will.
a lot
What?
to
Sorry.
unpack. I'm gonna try to keep it unpolitical and just say, like I shared with you in Preppy Prep, another thing in Preppy Prep. So without saying, you know, candidates who I may or may not like and reasons for whatever, but I thought there was a quite a touching moment during the Democratic National Convention in which when Tim Walz was giving his speech and he was sharing his love of his family and his son very sweetly was very emotional. Like while his dad was talking about his family and giving his speech, he's very clearly proud of his father. It's very clear, like no matter what, that Tim Walz is probably a good dad. No, like no matter what else you think, right? And the kid mouths like, "That's my dad," and like points up toward the screen, standing and clapping. And it's like honestly made because again, I'm in such a state. It made me emotional. Like I liked it. It was sweet. And then the trolls take to the internet
Sure.
and start berating an 18-year-old. I'll just say kid like with a learning disability. And then I liked what came out after that when some of them tried to walk it back and be like, well, if I had known he had a learning disability, I wouldn't have done it. And that's like, so if you had known, then like it would have been better to just make fun of an 18-year-old kid who loves his father. Like, what is wrong with the
That's
universe
kind of woke.
sometimes?
Do you think have to walk it back? It's kind of woke. I
It
don't know.
is. There's a lot wrong with it.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
It's just
Well,
like
again,
the internet. Like lots of people in my circles just say like we need to just take away the internet for a while. I think they just need the internet just needs to be revoked. Maybe just like a certain time period during the day, or and I'm joking, of course, because hashtag free speech. But just
right.
why?
People
You
are
know
people.
why?
Well, I guess too. Speaking of
Because it
trolls, are
was so
just
sweet. Like on the flip
right.
side of the positive moment, it was just such a sweet moment, politics aside. Because again, I'm not like endorsing or disendorsing any candidates
Right.
in this in my portion of the segment. It's just like that
It's a
was
rare
so
thing. It's a rare
really
thing
nice
it's a rare thing
to
to
see
see.
a child to be
Right.
that moved by
Right.
his father, you know? You don't do that. You can't fake that. Like
No.
that's not like a show, you know?
No. No. No,
That's my hot take.
trolls are stupid. I mean, I can even circle back for a twofer and do the Olympics
Circle back for
where
it too for
everybody watches for 5 minutes and is now an expert in that sport or event.
yes.
And I'm like, well,
There you go.
the confidence, nobody said humans aren't confident. Um, Kind of going along with I think what I've said the past on one of the other ones about like out of all the things in the world, you're gonna take your time to seek out the page of maybe a actor who plays a character you don't like or something
Yep.
and fully do whatever. So similarly, when an athlete does not have their moment at the Olympics, you have nothing better to do in your life than seek out their social media and just start bombing them and harassing them. Like get a fucking life. Like
I know.
what
Like
is
what you
wrong with
take your
you? Like,
time with. Like
well,
what
that's
you
the thing.
spend your
It's like you
time
have
doing.
nothing. Go out and touch some grass. Go get a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, go ground yourself, as some
Go
people would
touch
say.
grass. Lick tree bark or go put your head in a sewer. I don't know. Do whatever the fuck
Right?
you want. Go see somebody. Go sit down somewhere. Like what the fuck is wrong with you?
Go
So I
enjoy
guess
yourself. Be happy.
yeah,
You
and I
know?
guess this really culminated in kind of early on in the track ones, and maybe I'm like also because he's a former Badger, but there was an athlete who runs for Australia who 6 months ago was not running at all, was injured. So by
Okay.
miracle, got himself qualified, ran in the 1500, ran the repechage, and just didn't qualify, and ended up. So people who don't know, track season is not over with the Olympics. It is still going on. It's called the Diamond League right now. It's going on
Yep.
all over Europe. So they've just had more. So everybody's like favorite matchups in track keep happening, which is why it's actually kind of cool to watch like non-track fans get into it for the Olympics. Because it's like this is what we have every couple of weeks. Welcome to the sport. So that was cool, but getting bullied to the point that he basically just deactivated his account because he made the mistake of looking at it like in between or figuring after he had kind of won bad race. He's like, well, it's probably done. And it wasn't. And basically he's like, I'm just gonna just not look at it for the rest of
Yeah.
the season. And I'm like,
Really?
what's wrong with everybody? Like, what again? And he said, like, he was on a podcast and he said, he's like, it's not even like quote unquote track fans. He's like, these are just, from what I can tell, random people who like probably just
That
turned on the
don't
one
know anything
race.
about anything.
Don't know
Yeah.
anything. Um,
Love
a
it.
American like female marathoner in the marathon got dragged because she went to the start line injured and basically made it like just I don't know if like 5K and dropped out. And people are like, she's so selfish. She stole it from the alternate. And it's like, whoa, God, none of you have ever. Okay, I
Come
haven't either.
on.
But it was interesting to listen to. There's another podcast with two people who are still one of them still competing and have been the alternate. One has been the alternate. One is all they've also run injured and been like contracts. Like, guess what? You don't line up at the line.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get your contract cut. Sponsorships. Um, People make think there's also a cutoff period when you can put the alternate in. You can't just swap them out the night before. Different things. Also, I mean, you got it. You earned your spot. You should fucking be able to start if you earned it and you feel like you might be had a chance. I don't know.
There
So
you go.
again, she hasn't I only shut down her stuff, but Fiona O'Keefe apparently just also, I mean, I saw just in general, but people apparently I think went to her sought out her social media and also just bombed her. And
Railed her.
I'm like, again, there's a lot of things going on in the world.
What do you spend your time on?
What are you doing? Why? Who cares? I guarantee you didn't even know who she was before this. Like,
Totally.
I mean, some people,
Well,
yes. Some people in the running community were dragging it or questioning
sure.
it. Like for most people, I'm like, you don't even care. Why? Why don't you put that effort into local policies and
Thank
things?
you. I was just gonna,
Like,
Brittany, thank you. You're so eloquent. Let's tie the bow with bringing us back to one of our eloquent guests and what we tied it to earlier, which is, hey, part of the reason why we're doing this is because we like dialogue. We like humorous dialogue, but we like dialogue, okay? And like where people can talk about things, right? In a way that's like not disgusting, okay? And I think that's really a good point. Like, what do you spend your time on? Like if you're spending time on the internet, like
Sure.
dragging people down or trolling people because you have nothing better to do, think about all the things you could be doing that are better than that, like participating in your community, volunteering, going to meetings, learning about what's going on in
Mhm.
your world, in your local universe. That might be a better use of your time, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell politicians, tweet to politicians to fuck off all the time, but they're asking for it. Um,
That's different, Brittany.
it is
I'm gonna defend
different.
you in that sense. That's
It is
different
different. I was just gonna say
because
that's
you
like
are a well-read, very like well-informed person who has the right to rail against people because you're doing it from an informed place rather than a
Holly
misinformed or
or
ill-informed
Hollywood
place.
pedophiles. Like you want to tweet at them
Hey,
and tell them to go fuck off? Absolutely. I mean,
do whatever
again,
you want.
but yeah, for other people where it's just normal people doing their shit, or just, people are human. Everybody's not going to perform or do whatever. Or, they play a character you don't like in something, fine. That's because they're good actors, number one. Like, amazing, because they're also sweet people. Speaking of like people on Game of Thrones or prior, like people who got so much hate and other things that they have like just stopped acting as like child actors
Yep.
because got hate. It's like, what are you just put the energy to something worth it? Just
Put the
do it.
energy to something worth it. Mic drop. Brittany, we have wrapped season one of the Snarking Lot.
We have.
Are you looking forward to season two?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to come of it. When it starts, what fun topics we're going to have for people for the
I think we
snark.
got to start with just a level setting one, and then we're going to get that next guest we talked about, which is going to be a great episode about intergenerational friendship. So I think
Yep.
everyone will look forward to that, right? And then we'll go from there. We'll see where the world takes us.
Yep. So always happy to hear suggestions from the Snarkiverse.
That's right. We do love suggestions. We sincerely do want to hear them because we will do. Because we are people of the people, if nothing else, right?
We're the people's champs and we can be bought.
We're corporate elitists when it comes to this podcast
I
only.
didn't even say you had to right. And by bot, I mean put a suggestion on the
No,
socials.
no, no, I mean money. Because the more views we get, we want to make some
Thought you were
money
gonna say
eventually.
thought you were gonna say
So
pickles and cheese.
no, I mean real money. We want some sponsorships. Hee We can be bought. We totally can.
Everybody, as I told a former employer who then was like, "You're too harsh." I said, "Everyone's got a price." Fine, let me revise that. Everyone has priorities
There you go. That's right.
and in an
That's
order.
right.
And for the right, and when the priorities align, people will go for it.
This is me snapping in agreement. Doot doot doot. All right. Well, on
Love
that
how
note, Brittany, do you wanna give everyone your ever classic sign off as we wrap this beautiful first rendition of the Snarking Lot?
thank you everyone for a great season one. Looking forward to season two. And remember, especially nowadays, always bring your logic to a dumb fight.
Heck yeah. Bye.
Bye.